Okay, we will call this meeting to order, Agenda and Priorities meeting for April the 3rd. And I will ask Councillor Wing to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go into 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions?
Yes, Mayor Barclay, council consideration ad in camera. According to the MGA, section 197.2, Freedom of Information Privacy Act, section 24.1G, please.
All right, thank you. Can I please have someone make a motion to accept the agenda as amended? Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barclay, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay. All right, I'd like to welcome Amber Thibault with the Central Alberta Palliative Care. And Amber's going to do a presentation today on the services that she provides. So welcome, Amber. We're very grateful. Yeah, you do. Well, just because the meeting's actually recorded, so people can watch it tomorrow.
There, you can hear me. Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. Good afternoon. I am actually new to Innisfail as of the last year, and in that year, I bought a house here and I started a business. And so I wanted to come and introduce my business to all of you to let you know that we exist and that we're present. And we're working with your community members. So I started what we call Central Alberta Palliative Care. And it is a private in-home nursing care for Central Albertans that strictly focuses on palliative, end of life. So those who are wishing to remain out of hospital, those who do not qualify for hospice, and greatly targeting the rural population so that they can stay in their home with their loved ones, with their animals, and palliate and end their lives there. So how we work is I hire multiple RNs, LPNs, and healthcare aides all throughout Central Alberta. We're based here out of Innisfail, and then we just go right into the homes and offer the nursing care. We work with 2 nurse practitioners and closely with home care to ensure continuity of care and do whatever they need and what their wishes are to help them die at home. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and welcome to Innisfail. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Amber? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and thank you, and also welcome to Innisfail. Just a question around the number of staff that you employ. Are they full-time, part-time, casual?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how I've structured the business is that all of my employees are casual, meaning they get to be in complete control of how many hours they want or do not want. And so the idea is that the nurses that I hire in Stettler care for the Stettler community. Those that are hired in Rocky care for the Rocky community, but they're not limited. If they want to travel, they can. That being said, some love nights. Others have young families and want to only work days. So if they want to pick up 4-day shifts this week, great. But if we don't have a client this week and they want 2 shifts next week, then they're able to do that. And yeah, it seems to work out really nicely to put it into their hands. They can choose.
Just a supplemental, if I could. How big is your region, Central Alberta? That could be quite big.
Currently, it's rather small. It is Innisfail, Rocky, and Stettler are our main areas, just because the hospice societies there are greatly active. But the dream is actually from Leduc to Airdrie, from Saskatchewan to the Rocky Mountains. That would be, the nurses are there, they're willing. So as long as we get the clientele, then we're absolutely able to do that.
Councillor Bates.
Yes, no, thank you for the introduction. How do you advertise yourself? Because, to be very honest, until I saw it on the agenda, I didn't know you existed.
That's great feedback. Thank you. So word of mouth is a huge one. What I've been doing more so is partnering up with community groups such as home care, hospice societies, the Alberta Hospice and Palliative Care Association. I did some advertising on Facebook, but for the most part, connecting with our community partners that are already out there is huge. We're doing a huge promotion right now through the Danes Rodeo Ranch. So we're a sponsor of the Bullarama in Penhold this coming May, and then another sponsor for it in the rodeo in June as well, just because that's the demographic we want. So we actually, one way that we advertised was the coffee news. Dale, you have one in the Coffee Cottage. Anyways, we advertised in there because that is exactly the demographic that we're targeting, is those gathering at A&W for 6 a.m. coffee and those that are willing to read the news. So that is another method we've used.
Thank you.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. And yes, welcome to Innisfail, and it's lovely to hear about your business. I have a question for you related to one of your introductory comments, and that was around qualification for hospice. So is there a provincial guideline that mandates that, or do each of the hospices create their own because they do operate individually?
Yeah, so it does depend on the medical needs of the patient, whether they can be managed or not in hospice. Hospice, the one in Red Deer anyways, is ran with the care of LPNs. And so if the patient is needing any certain care that is strictly an RN practice, they're not eligible to go. And there is certain criteria that they need to meet. We call it a PPS score. And so you have to have 30% or less in order to get into hospice, at which point some people gradually make that, others drastically make that, and then there may not be a bed in hospice or those logistics, yeah.
Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Amber, thank you so much. Nice to see you again. It's more of a comment. I have had an opportunity to have some interaction with you, obviously, and I'm just so happy that you've had an opportunity to come and speak to all of us about what you're doing. And I think it's just such a wonderful niche that you're trying to backfill. And so we wish you the best of luck with that. Thank you.
Councillor Messaros?
Yeah, welcome also, and I'm so happy to hear that this service is here and running. I know it's needed, and yeah, thanks for coming to present today.
So Amber, your business is private, so paid for by the client. Are you doing any advocacy to Alberta Government Health Services to have funding in place? Because I think I can tell you that baby boomers, we're not going to go quietly into the night, and we're not going to put up with things that our parents' generation put up with. And I used to warn the girls about that at Rosefield. My mom was in a dementia unit called the Parrot Wing, and I said, when I get here, it will be like the Jimmy Buffett parrot heads and the margarita makers going. But you know, I think there, like Councillor Messaros said, that there is a need for it. You know, many of us have experienced this, and, you know, maybe been lucky enough to have somebody in the family that could provide the care at home, but not everybody is in that situation. And I think it's such a valuable service, or at least give people choice, where so often people don't have the choice of where they go. So I wonder where you are along that spectrum.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So that is actually how this started. Prior to Innisfail was in Calgary, where AHS does fund in-home palliative care, and I was working for those companies. So when I came to Alberta, or to Red Deer area, and was nursing, many of my patients said, "Why can't I go home?" And I said, "Well, let me just get you the number," and then realized it wasn't there. So that is the dream. Right now we are private, but ideally I'd love for AHS, Alberta Health, to fund us. So that is where I put a lot of my energy right now. I've reached out to MLAs to help, because as we know, they've allocated about 18 million for private care such as this, and for palliative care. So trying to get our hands on that. At this stage, they have responded and essentially said that they are in, maybe let's say, research stage, and are not delegating finances to groups such as mine, or businesses such as mine, to care for patients in the community at this time, and essentially to keep my eyes open for in the future if that opportunity ever does come available.
But you're telling me the service is available in Calgary, so a private company in Calgary like yours can get funding, but not in Central Zone?
Correct.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. I will, yeah, we'll touch base, okay?
That would be incredible.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Okay. 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 Any other questions from anyone? Okay, do you have a, there's phone numbers here, okay, perfect. We'll get in touch with you.
Perfect.
Have a
Thank you
chat,
so much.
okay? Thanks,
I
Amber, for
appreciate your
coming.
time. Thanks.
Okay,
Have a good day.
we appreciate you, thank you. Okay, we will go into updates from administration, and I think we're going to change the schedule up a little bit here, and we're going to start with Director Kennedy. Did CEO Becker let you know that? Apparently not. Okay. We're going to talk about the Aquatic Center to start with.
I just play surprise. Thanks, Mayor Barclay. So, yeah, so what I wanted to do is just talk about the next steps for the new aquatic facility. So back in March 20th, we did come to council and present a review of the key elements of the aquatic facility validation report. Those included the project values, design summary, budget, grant funding, as well as the sustainability of the project. Some of the feedback we heard, and we'd like to just, I guess, confirm with council that this is the feedback we heard from you that will be addressed during detailed design. So one is the parking capacity. Second was the office space requirements versus vendor space. Third was the spacing between the arena and the new building. Fourth was the pool viewing area. And then operational savings associated with energy efficient upgrades. So I guess just a little bit of feedback there, if that's covers most of your feedback, or if we missed anything.
Does anybody have any feedback? Councillor Messaros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Director Kennedy. I believe, yes, all of these things came up in our meeting, but I wasn't under the impression that all of them needed to go back to discussion. So for instance, I think they answered some of the questions while they were here. Yeah, so that's my comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Through to Director Kennedy. I guess for me, I was hoping that we would have an opportunity to perhaps have a extended opportunity over a couple hours to sit down and really go sort of more on a granular level about the designs and what we are hearing already back from the community on what they see in the Aquatic Center, which also what they were hoping to see. And I know obviously that within the budget that we had initially set out, that was the focus, that's where we came to, but I personally would like us to see us have a couple hours or an hour or two to sit down and discuss this further, because I've got some ideas and some feedback from the community that I'd like to share, but I really don't think that we have the time right now to do that.
Yeah, I think my feeling is that, in the sense of when we don't want to get too deep into designing the building, because that's not what we do, but, you know, at some point have public consultation if that was going to be part of this process at some point. To me, a bigger picture right now, stay up here, and how are we going to fund this thing, and what's the strategy to get the funding in place, and we can worry about the design as we move forward. But you know, we can move all sorts of rooms and everything else around, but if we don't have the money to build, it doesn't really matter. So that would be my approach to this at this point. I mean, I honestly haven't even really looked too much at the report yet, just haven't really taken the time, but and when we do, I would like to have like a half-day or 2-hour session, whatever it takes, where we can have a larger discussion about that. And Councillor Bates?
So for me, I think parking capacity is definitely one that probably does need a look. And just from being at the arena during peak times, most of the area that they're talking about expanded has been used impromptu by people figuring out how to use it. So it's going to be needed. And then to the funding component, I need some kind of help understanding how we're going to get to those levels. Because I mean, I just this morning sat there and said to myself, so if we carte blanche tomorrow, put in a 10% tax increase and put it 100% to the Aquatic Center, that's not going to do it. If you put every year into that reserve, likely that's not, it needs, I need some kind of a composite funding windows that show me how, we would need this grant or at this time, or
Yep.
along with some tax increase, along with donations and community fundraising. I need to see those components that might work. Thank you.
Oh, great comments. I appreciate that, Councillor Bates. So I guess that goes into the next set here is looking at, like what we see as being the funding opportunities with no value set. So the following, we came up with 5, potentially another one, 6 would be, so first, obviously province and federal. So we know we need to start lobbying. We need to try and find some opportunity there for grants. Red Deer County, now that we have the report, we will now engage and start setting up meetings to see what kind of value that looks like. Provincial community, so CFIP, there is a max on that, $1 million. So we know we have an opportunity there. And then as well, sponsorship and fundraising, that's a difficult one, because it starts then, we need to look at, okay, external resources and who's gonna keep going on this, as well as setting a target. We know when we did research in Drayton Valley, they set a target so that they knew they were funding it up front, but they were gonna, hopefully, as they get sponsorship, they will then backfill it afterwards. So, thinking about that and eventually setting a target, obviously, for that one is important. Obviously, town budget, we've kind of always talked about $10-12 million. Is that reasonable? We'll come back to you, obviously, with if it is 10-12 million, how do we pay for that? What's the duration, all that stuff? So we will provide you with more information on that for sure.
So, Director Kennedy, did Drayton Valley use an external company to do any of the sponsorship fundraising? Like I believe Black Falls did they not, with the Abbey Center? Director?
I'm not sure about Black
Jenkins?
Falls. Drayton Valley used a community committee is who
Okay.
did their fundraising, yeah.
Okay, because there was FCM in Quebec City, there was somebody who presented there, and is what he did, and he spoke about Black Falls, and I don't remember the name anymore. I think I mentioned it to Director Jenkins, and she was familiar with the company, but that might be an opportunity, right, to...
I know when Rocky Mountain House, when we were involved with that one, that was an external there. So there's opportunities there. We'll provide you with some more information and some guidance there. And then the one that's not on the list here that we're getting some more information on, obviously, is the PP or the P3 opportunities, but I am not really familiar with that, so I'm trying to get some more information on what that looks like and provide you back with some more. So really we wanted to just provide you with what we were looking at, and maybe we're missing something, or just gather some feedback from you in regards to what you see as those funding sources, or if we're missing something here.
Councillor Bates?
So to explain my need, it would be to see some different models of a pie chart that basically say this component we would get as a grant. This component we would get through those various sources from, county or whatever, or community fundraising, or it's something that says, and this portion we would borrow or raise taxes or whatever. I need some visual that shows me that X amount of dollars is within reach of doing.
Right.
Because like I said, what I look at is, we all know it's probably going to escalate somewhat, and, there'll be a process back through IDP that hopefully we don't change the design too much, because that obviously creates problems. But I just need to kind of see that so that I know that the number, whatever that number is doable.
Yep.
And doable inside some kind of a scope of time where the IDP is still valid, or the revalidations are achievable as well. That's what I'm reaching for. Thank you.
And like internally, we have chatted about that. Like we've given values to these, or what we think's possibly achievable. But really, we're at this stage, we're just looking at, you know, are these where we're thinking is fair and reasonable? And then we will definitely present back to you in regards to, you know, is it 10 to 12 town, 1 to 2 county, sponsorships at $1.5 million, you know, that type of thing. And then see if we get, you know, how does that work? And then how is that achievable financially? So yes, great comments.
Yes, I think that's where maybe we should start there first, as opposed to worrying about design too much at this point. And, yeah, and, you know, I think we have to set some goals too, right? And we have, you know, as a council, if we're going to talk to provincial, federal, what is our goal with them? And, you know, that's reasonable to consider as well. So, I mean, that's really our role to play in some of that as advocates, from political to political, so.
Great.
Okay. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I guess, yeah, to the group, I would like to revisit the comment earlier around setting some time aside for us to come together outside of a meeting situation and go through it. You know, I hear the requests for, you know, well, for if you have any thoughts or if you have any ideas. But for me, the part that's missing is when we met with Shandos and Group 2 last June, we talked about, you know, council being involved in some of the tours and sort of getting a picture in our minds around what it looks like, and hearing we could have been meeting with councils in other places to say, how did you manage the fund development? Did you hire somebody? How did you manage the intergovernment relations? I feel like I don't know, I feel like because there's been so much work that's happened through the process, and I appreciate everything that has come forward. Of course, our first comments are going to be around design because we really haven't been involved in any of it. So I would really like to have a couple of hours that we can sit down and talk about some of the things we learned last week at Alberta municipalities and regional growth. I mean, we talk about the county of Red Deer. Well, we're the only pool between Olds and Red Deer, and there's a lot more than just Red Deer County in that space that we should be bringing to the table and talking about how we serve the residents in that region. That's just one example, but yeah, so I would just really like to ask that we have the opportunity to sit down outside of a meeting and have a good conversation about it. Thanks.
So with that,
See you later.
Mayor and Council, so we'll set up a meeting probably in the next few weeks, I'd say, with the time that's you're available. We'll come in, coordinate the idea more based on financial, with the idea of potentially booking some tours. I know we did talk about that a while ago. Yeah, and talk about other competing priorities perhaps in relation to funding models. Might be a good idea to look outside of within your other priorities too.
Yeah, I think the design that's come back is, you know, somewhat based on our feedback. We had opportunities with Group 2 and Shandos along the way, and you know, I love the Ninja Cross idea because it's something that's so unique for this facility, but I don't know, just it's going to come down to money, right? And the bottom line is we need a new aquatic center, and how do we do that financially? Councillor Bates.
It occurs to me too that we probably should update our view of what it's going to cost us to keep the current one going for the next, you guys can pick the time frame, but I think we should know that too.
All right, so I will just have somebody please make a motion to that we accept this report as information.
Mayor
Councillor
Barclay, I would move that council provide feedback, which we did, but accept this report as information.
Wing. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we will move into strategic priorities with CEO Becker now.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I just want to generalize this report. As the report states, that the town has heard back on 2 grants that the town applied for. One was for the Northern and Regional Economic Development Grant of just shy of $60,000, which the town received, which is going to help council with their strategic plan associated with economic development. Administration's currently in the process of developing an action plan associated with the grant dollars and the budget dollars that are available. So that'll likely appear before the committee towards the end of April. The other grant that we applied for is long in the waiting on the response to the grant, which we did not achieve. It's through the Alberta Crime Prevention Grant, which would have set us advanced our community safety and wellness plan. Fortunately, there is $20,000 remaining in the budget, which was budgeted in 2022 and moved over to 2023. And based on council's acknowledgement, this project to be initiated based on, I guess, the result of this conversation and your other priorities. Just so council's aware, this project would require a joint administrative work team of myself and the manager of fire and protective services as the co-leads of this project. Just wanted to just talk a little bit about other priorities and more specifically to the Department of the Corporate Services, and just in making sure we're mindful of other competing projects and priorities, action plans. The council really doesn't perhaps get to witness and see because they're more based on operational and the public side of service. But if we go down into the list that's on this report, you'll see some of the larger ones of the priorities involve the Director of Corporate Services. So where I'm going with this dialogue is just open up conversation to confirm that these items listed here remain as your priorities. And if they're not, then perhaps we could strike. But I'm assuming just through the dialogue I've heard over the course of time that these would likely remain as priorities. If that's true, then start maybe thinking about when is it best suited to align your priorities and your urgency to advance the priorities based on the ability to support you administratively. So I guess my question be, Mayor Barclay and the council, is just looking at this list of priorities, and do these remain as your primary priorities, and is there anything missing currently?
Okay, please have some feedback as to the list and what everybody thinks of the priorities. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to CAO Becker. I would say these are our priorities, and I put the question back to administration. How full is the glass right now? Because, you know, we can keep dumping water into it until it starts bubbling over. But there comes a point where I think if your glass is already full and these are in there, probably good. Like now we got to think about what we may take out to put another one in if we need to do that. So the question that I have, CEO Becker, is how full is your glass?
That's a good question, Mayor Barclay to Councillor Harrison. The glass is always full, but it's always making room, what pebbles we can put in that jar to advance priorities. I think there is some room, and why I bolded those 4 items is to say, if council wishes to advance all 4, it'd be a challenge. So the idea of what is your highest priority, if you're looking for my recommendation, I could provide you a recommendation, even with this list here. But it's full, but things are moving. And for example, with the directors, there's a few things coming off, which makes room. But specifically, not to highlight onto the Director of Corporate Services, but due to the CAO's touches a lot of the actions and priorities, the Director of Corporate Services really touches all of them to different levels. So whether it's through procurement or through contracts or whatever support. So even though in this case, Erica may not be the lead of other priorities on your priorities chart, she would have a role. But the other side of that is the protection of systems, HR. So I could certainly get into specifics on my recommendation if that's what you wish to help you with your dialogue, then you can debate.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
My recommendation to you, council, would be to postpone social procurement to another time within your term based on other commitments. We're we're really working hard on energy, we're working hard on industrial park, we're working hard on the aquatic center. I think government relations strategy should always be your priority, and build that out based on your other priorities, whether it's aquatic center or energy or industrial park. That should always have some level of build out, whether it's full build out or just a napkin. You should always have that strategy in place. I think the tax policy, based on Erica's acknowledgements, tax policy review and the CEAP, Clean Energy Improvement Program, could be initiated, likely in a form of, put these as your highest priorities. Through Erica would come back with a more detailed scope. But I think we can achieve those over the next 12, 18 months. As you can see, the aspiration, we just want to help, but 12 months. So I think we've started just generalizing, pulling that information, but I'd say, guide the CAO to help molding a government relations strategy with you directly, and then move on to the Director of Corporate Services to advance a tax policy review and the CEAP program. At the same time, I believe the Community Safety and Wellness Plan, we have the scopes already been approved by you several months ago. I'd say towards mid-May, roll out that RFQ to the market to attract consultants and initiate it full bore going by fall. And I'll just stop there on those higher priorities.
Okay, well, thank you, CEO Becker. Let's have some feedback to CEO Becker's comments, and why don't we start we'll just go from person to person. So go ahead, Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I'm happy to start. Thank you for the feedback. I think we're all very, very well aware that our asks in the 16 months since we have been sitting around this table have been large, and that we know that there's only so much capacity, and at some point we knew that we'd have to probably start lower prioritizing or even striking some of our asks out of there. So I'm happy with your recommendations. I definitely would like to see the government relations strategy, as you said. I think that's a big one. The tax review policy is also something that we've been talking about for some time, as well as I believe with the previous council. So if we're going to prioritize them, I'd like to see those two. And yeah, if we can delay the social procurement till a later date, until those have come to fruition, I'm definitely comfortable with that.
Right, thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Thank you, CAO Becker, for your candidness. That's the reason I asked the question, because I call sort of balls to the wall here, and as council people, we'll just keep adding to the list, and everything's a priority for us. Like we just heard 10 minutes ago about, now we're going back to the community to look at design stuff for a new aquatic center. My comment to that will be is we've already done that. We've had many studies done. We've given the planning team their marching orders, and now, so here we are again, just going back and going back. I fully support the government relations strategy, and I fully support what you feel that our key priorities should be. So I'm okay with the feedback you just gave. So thank you again for your openness and your candidness, CEO Becker. And also thank you to administration for supplying that for CEO Becker. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I have to put my list away? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
No, thank you. I would absolutely agree with my colleagues' comments so far. Those key policies that we've been talking about would be nice to be able to finish off. And the government relations strategy is something that I'm really keen to see have some meat put on the bones. As for social procurement, I agree with postponing it, although I would really like to have a feel for what that looks like prior to sending the aquatic center to tender, if possible. But otherwise, thank you for all your work.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bates.
So I certainly agree at this point with stepping back from the social procurement. Similar comments to what the other folks have said. Obviously, the one that I see there, the 2022 year-end report will come off sooner or later. No, but it'll still come off sooner or later because, and then there'll be a 2023 one, right? So I do think we should probably recognize, so that you get credit for the fact, you're going to have, from the discussion we had with the Aquatic Center, you're going to have a component of everybody involved in that quite a bit, and coming and going, and maybe, you know, whatever that evolves to after our next discussion. So I think you should probably recognize that that's going to stay in a priority mode of some type until it finds its place in the timelines. Beyond that, I bow to your direction.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Messaros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said as well. And in terms of, I'm happy that you used the word postpone the social procurement policy or project. And yeah, I agree with what you've recommended. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So definitely keen on the SEEP program because I feel it fits so well with the Innisfail Energy Hub and everything that we are doing around energy. Of course, tax policy, definitely. I think we, you know, Director Vickers has been suggesting we need some more tax categories going forward. So those would be my top two. You know, and I guess more formalizing government relations strategy, and we obviously do some of that already, but to formalize it, don't want to lose the ball on social procurement because I think that's really important that we start delving into that at some point in time, but I will defer to you when that time is for sure. But I think it's a very important component of kind of our strategic plan and who we are as a community going forward. So thanks for the feedback, and thanks to everybody for everything you do. And can't forget Director Vickers still has to march up 57 stories on top of that, so that's not on the list.
So council, just, I'll kind of throw it over to the directors here too. So appreciate your comments. So yeah, just looking at the directors team, just on the other parts of this list, I know there's discussion energy retailer, Megan, that comes to mind. Accessible dog park, public art policy, etc. I just want anything comes to mind just on direction and strategy or priorities based on your other priorities and workloads. When do you foresee that coming, or is that already part of your actions?
So the energy retailer research and putting some information together for council is sort of already in play, and I think it ties in, and there's some synergies if we do move ahead on that SEEP program as well. That could increase the impact if council chooses to pursue that. So that one is sort of already in play. Yeah, I guess public art's the other one that's on, kind of falls in my basket on that list. We haven't moved anything forward since the fall, essentially, when we came to council with draft policies on public art. At that time, council didn't allocate budget to that project. So essentially, it's sort of been set aside at this point. But art in the community continues to evolve, and how we're going to be able to react and respond to that. So that one, I guess, in my current work plan is still sitting sort of in the next column.
Okay, and
Director Vickers?
yep.
So the employee policy manual, we are very close to being done. We have built out all of our draft policies, have reviewed them at first at SLT and then a secondary review with all the manager supervisors. So right now we're at a stage we're just kind of cleaning things up, and then likely we'll be at a stage to get them all signed in and implemented we'll bring the old policy to have it repealed, and then we'll look at doing some training sessions for all staff. So I am very confident that within another 2 to 3 months, probably that will be completely done and implemented and trained. All the staff will be trained on that. Staff culture assessment and salary grid review are scheduled to happen this year. However, they will be done by our third-party HR consultant. The salary grid review is expected to be completed prior to September so that we can review it properly within our budget discussions. The staff culture assessment is slated for like May, June, kind of before summer holidays to talk to all the staff. And the budget policy, we have done some high-level preliminary look at what's out there, and that will be slated more for this summer kind of thing, get that completed in the summertime.
Okay, sounds great, thank you. Anything else? Zubair?
Just based on your discussion, council, and your direction, we will come back to you with that filled-out chart, which is attached. It'll come to you next Monday for review and approval.
Okay. So with respect to the public art policy, would that be something that, you know, you would probably bring back later in the year because it would need budget dollars potentially and?
Yeah, I think there's some budget implications. Depends, I guess.
Yeah, it
We want to
depends.
capture your vision.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a committee,
Yeah.
a public committee, then it's, there is some dollars required to administer a committee if it's something different. But I think right now my direction to the Director of Community Services is let's pull some policies.
Yeah.
Let's take a review and what we present to council and just have a look at that prior to the budget and see where that lies into your vision and
Sure.
aspirations.
Sounds good. Okay. So I will have somebody make a motion, please, that we approve the strategic
Yeah, well, sorry, just
Just
information. right?
information, yeah, that we approve this report as information, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. And we will now move on to 4.2, the art installation at the Library Learning Center.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So just looking to inform council of a request received from the Innisfail Art Club looking to display and market art created by their members within the foyer of the LLC. The request has been made for space along the east side hallway and as well as above the fireplace. Administration has met with representatives from the group to discuss the logistics. The club would be responsible for all of the hanging maintenance and monitoring of any installation. A draft agreement was attached in your package outlining the responsibilities of each. Again, that the town will not be held responsible for any theft or damage to the work. At this point, looking to set the term of the agreement for 1 year, just to allow us to see how it plays out, as well as how our public art approach may evolve over that time frame. In terms of service level impacts, we've looked into appropriate sort of gallery-style hanging rails to be installed by town staff. The art club would handle any of the actual handling of the art pieces and installing them. In that budget range of about $500, we figure we can do this. And again, they would be run down the hallway where the pop machine is right now, and then as well as above the fireplace on the foyer side. So yeah, just looking for any input or comments from council on that report.
Okay, thank you, Director Jenkins. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Bates?
Just one, not totally visualizing, yeah, I get where the hallway is and above the fireplace, but would the art club be notified that there may be occasional uses in there that their art might be obscured for a short period of time, like Christmas tree festival, or, you know, that they might, yeah, there might be some other use that would periodically interrupt them, even from getting at their art?
For sure, that's a great point, Councillor Bates, and we could include that even in that draft, that, you know, the art club recognizes that this is a public facility that is used for various purposes throughout the year that may impact access to the pieces or something.
Any other comments? Oh, sorry, I thought he was going for the microphone there. He's not. Okay, I'll just have a motion then, please, to accept this report as information.
I'll move that, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And we will move on to the procurement policy and process review with Director Kennedy, please.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. So I did provide in the package here just a copy of our procurement policy dated back in 2016 for your review. And we thought we'd pull out a few of the items within it just for discussion and just make sure council is still, I guess, comfortable with the policy itself. So first, we'd like to just do a quick review of the policy statement itself. The town of Innisfail will ensure openness, transparency, and accountability in its procurement of goods, services, and construction works. The town shall conduct its purchasing in accordance with generally recognized purchasing practices, including, wherever possible, a competitive process to ensure the town receives best value in procurement. The policy purpose: to maintain financial flexibility, viability, efficiency in procurement activities, and to uphold fairness and equal application of this policy. The town is committed to creating and maintaining a high level of confidence in its procurement of goods and services by ensuring integrity, transparency, accountability, efficiency, and consistency in its procurement process, while acting within the authorities of the MGA, FOIP, AIT, and Northwest Trade Agreement. So I guess I'll just end there for those two statements and just see if council is comfortable with those.
Anybody have any questions about that?
No? Okay, thank you. So another section within that policy is the local preference section. So it does read, in the case of vendor submission from a local supplier that is equal to or better than the vendor submission from a non-local supplier, but of a higher price, the town may accept the submission from a local supplier subject to the following conditions. The maximum price variance allowed in giving preference to a local supplier shall be 5%. The value of the procurement is less than $75,000 for goods and services and less than $200,000 for construction services. So based on the policy, formal public advertising for a tender, RFP, or RFQ process is required when the procurement value of a single item or service is expected to be equal or greater than $75,000. Typically, administration contracts local dealers as well as advertising on the EPC for all fleet purchases. So that's just a standard practice that we have internally. We're not required to do that for items under 75,000, but typically we have been as an internal process. Within the template request for quotes, administration has set the following evaluation criteria: price at 50%, warranty at 25%, and then we have a consumer report, rebates or incentives at 25%. Town of Innisfail reserves the right to consider variations from the requirements with due regard to their importance. Incomplete requirements may risk obtaining a lower score. As well, within the RFQ, we do typically provide a specification sheet that is to be filled out that provides information to the bidders on what requirements that piece of equipment or service is needing, as well as provides us with an evaluation that is equal within the submissions. So I guess if you have any questions in regards to that, we'll be able to take that right now.
Okay, anybody have any questions with respect to the procurement policy? Councillor Bates?
I have one with respect to those three criteria. Under warranty, would that be where there would be some comfort in the ability to deliver? Like, because sometimes you might get a bid from a company that's an upstart or whatever, that we have to evaluate that surety of being able to deliver, especially if it's something that's going to happen over a period of time or to a, you know, you've got the price consumer. I just see that component in there that we have to satisfy ourselves, and trying to think, we had a situation a few years back where we did even put a deposit down and then lost it because the company went.
Right.
They weren't viable. And so we need that in our heads, I guess, somewhere in that, and if it's in the warranty or.
I guess, to Councillor Bates, so warranty is basically set on just their, like, what we
How
will
long?
typically give criteria. I guess one of the items that we don't have in here is past experience, which we could include, and provide a rating for that. But that's kind of where that second statement says we do reserve the right to consider other items. So we can put that into consideration, though, for past experience, I guess, is something that.
And we're in such an evolution right now. Like, I could see us, let's say 5 years from now, we're buying a fleet of electric vehicles, let's say. There's a whole bunch of vehicles that are going to get released in this next year or two that are probably not going to withstand they can warranty it all they want, but the company is no longer in business. And there'll be a few weeded out for some time. That's just an example. So we have to have that component in our heads that if we're getting promised a warranty, if I'm getting a warranty from Ford or Toyota, I trust that. Not so sure about Rivian, and if I'm making myself clear that, yeah, it's a component of, and whether it be a procurement of a service or a good or it's somehow related to the solidness of the provider.
Yeah, we're Barclay, Councillor Bates, we do have experience on vendor longevity and commitments. We've had that experience before, and so that's part of the evaluation process, is that the warranty is of the product, but also warranty of, you know, achieving the product and the time period, but also the warranty and the credibility, I guess the word is, of the vendor itself.
As well as it includes like the type of warranty too. So we, a good example of this would have been the backhoe that we just purchased. Every vendor had a bit of a different warranty. So one would have a 4-year, included this, and this, but then the other guy included 4 years, but it didn't include a bunch of things. So that's where that more so I think is coming into that warranty is what they provide. Obviously we do look at our past experience. We take that into consideration as well. It's not clearly stated in here, but we do definitely take that.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good comments. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Director Kennedy. 2 points. Are the bidders, are they welcome to the opening of the RFPs, RFQs? Not the evaluation, but to the opening of the bids. Are they welcome to that?
Councillor, no, these are closed. These are closed openings. Just because of the sensitivity of the information, we provide, like, they can always come back and ask for some information, but we typically open these not to the public.
No, not to the public, I understand that, but as a bidder on a RFP, I've submitted my quote. Why would I not be allowed to sit and see the opening? Is there any particular reason for that?
Just our templates are they're closed. Anything over 75,000 or over 200,000 for our tendering process, those are publicly opened.
So not the public, but
Or-
the bidder
or
would
bidder
be,
opened.
yeah, they would be eligible to sit in on anything over the, as per the TIMLA requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I was going with that. Okay.
And Mayor Barclay, Councillor Harrison, and the vendors can request feedback on the results of the process, and we give them the detail. We want to give that feedback so they can help them be better on the next procurement process.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Mayor Barclay, excuse me. Yep, through to Director Kennedy. Other than referring to APC in that one line around advertising, is there anywhere else in our procurement processes where we're mandated, required, et cetera, to have a relationship with APC? And should we be, if so, should we be referring to that here so that it's clear to anyone looking at the policy that what APC is and what our relationship is with them?
So the reason that we reference it is because it's in the new West Trade Partnership Agreement, and that says in Alberta, you have to put it on the Purchasing Connection website.
Okay, so then, do we clearly say that somewhere? Does somebody that wants, you know, thinking about situations and whatever, do we clearly say, as per, we are required to? And if we don't, should we?
I think, Mayor Barclay, through to Councillor Wing, I think it just, in the purpose of the policy, the purpose statement, it just says that we must comply with the new West Trade Partnership Agreement, and that's likely the only place that's really referenced in the entire policy.
Or are you asking, Councillor Wing, like if when the RFP or RFQ goes out, would it be stated in there that that's where, like, well, that's where they find it, but like when you, yeah, I like the feedback we got the other day is people aren't necessarily using that, but they need to be, right? Because we have to use it, so.
Correct, Mayor Barclay, every municipality in Alberta,
Yeah.
if they are putting something over 75 for goods or services, and over 200 for construction, goes on APC, it doesn't matter what it is, so.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a great idea. I think Councillor Wing, you brought it
To
up
say
that,
it.
but have, you know, the chamber do some education along with the town about APC and how important that is if people are looking for those contracts. And
I guess the one thing to clarify, so for using our fleet as an example, like we could state based on this, like anything over 75,000 will be on APC, but like I said, it's been an internal practice of ours to advertise it, so it's not a requirement to advertise on APC for the lower values. So we've been doing that as more of to get more interest and then also to see if there's other competitors out there, so.
okay, good. All right, could I please have somebody make a motion to accept this as information?
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right. We will move into correspondence and information. Nobody has any questions? Well, please have somebody make a motion to accept the correspondence. Yes. Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? Right, carried. And then we will start with roundtable discussion, and today we're starting with Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Last week was a busy week. A few of us headed up to Edmonton, first of all for the AB Muni President's Summit, where we had about a day and a half of different speakers and presentations. Some of the highlights for me was President Kathy Heron's future of municipal government and what the work they've been doing around that. I attended a breakout session on win-win and how relationships with intermunicipality. I attended two different sessions within that, one around data and asset management, another one about building relationships. We also had a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rebecca Schultz, which was a really good meeting. Then I attended the AB Muni Spring Caucus. Once again, several different question and answers, a particularly good one with the Alberta RCMP, I believe he's the Deputy Commissioner, Curtis. I can't pronounce that last name, so I'm not even going to try. Family and Community Support Services and Victim Services Program Redesign, which was very interesting. And then as well on Saturday, I attended the Innisfail Trade Show.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham, and Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I had the honor of attending number 7 Squadron's Penholds Cadet Promotions and Parade last week, and it was really really enlightening to see all those young people. And there's 25 new cadets in that squadron, and they were all pretty keen. I had the opportunity to talk to, I felt like a sergeant major walking around there, shaking hands and stuff, but I had an opportunity to talk to every one of them, and there are 25 young between the ages of 14 and 18 that are really keen, so it's a great program. And with Captain Olette, what she's trying to do is reinvigorate the cadet squadron into the communities. Over time, it's sort of, waned a little bit, and it hasn't really blossomed the way that she would like to see it. And she's got a great vision. So, any time that we can sort of, foster that with the squadron, that would be great. Also attended the Parkland Foundation meeting last week, and we had our audited financial statement presented and approved, and the foundation's in really good shape. And I go back to when the decision was made to go with Bethany Care. It was probably the best decision that group has made and probably ever will make. They've really done a great job there. As far as vacancies here in Innisfil, we're in pretty good shape. Dawes Lake Manor, we're at 78%. We're Autumn Grove Lodge, we're at 93%. So our facilities are quite full. Some of the other ones aren't quite as fortunate, but overall, I think the foundation is pretty pleased as to where we're headed. And just compliments to our corporate services. I see, I was out and about today. I saw a Pace bus all over town. So congratulations. It's only been a quaint 6 months before. So it looks good being on the road. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I attended the Innisfil Library Board meeting last Tuesday evening. We have begun interviewing for the new library manager, as well as busy collecting community feedback for the new service delivery plan. Thoroughly enjoyed the Alberta Municipalities President Summit and the Spring Conference last week. I very much appreciated the focus on regional growth and the future of municipal governments, as my colleague Mr. Dunham has said. I attended a session called One Big Happy Family, which was led by the former mayors of the city of Edmonton and Parkland County. And I can assure you that 10 years ago, they were not one big happy family. They wouldn't have been sitting side by side on a stage participating in a panel. However, the topic being growth management boards, which should be a topic of great interest for Central Alberta, was very interesting and very well done. And then there was the trade show. So I'd like to thank Ken and the Innisfil town staff. The arena folks were absolutely fantastic. The work that happened in partnership with the town for the Innisfil Energy Hub, the speakers on Friday and Saturday were very well received, and I think for a first step into something quite different, I think it was really successful. And so I'd like to thank all of you for your contributions to that. I think we have a good base for going forward with ongoing community conversation, and so that's really valuable. We will be debriefing this week, but pleased with the responses we received from vendors and attendees. Fortis estimates they doubled the number of smokies they cooked on Friday evening from 300 to 600, so we're really pleased with the attendance and have some good plans to start focusing us as we move forward for next year. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Bates?
Okay, so, excuse me, last week I did attend the latter half of the AM caucus virtually, and found it to be very interesting. Kept looking for you guys in the video and didn't see you. Anyway, and then I basically spent the entire trade show in the Energy Hub corner. I know it's not probably great to single people out, but I'd certainly like to compliment Ken on his role as the hub leader and what he did putting the energy portion together. And I know you were torn between the town booth and police and safe community and all the other, but I don't think the Energy Hub corner would have happened without you. Yeah. And this week, MPC and the open house on Thursday for the lay-on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Messaros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Well, I had to miss that summit, or the AM conference last week, but I did go to something called Workplace Strategy Summit put on by CAPE, and there were some interesting speakers and panel discussions. Chief Clarence Louis came, and he was one of the keynote speakers. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but I highly recommend him, and he put up the book that he wrote, and I'm just reading it right now, an indictment of systemic racism by Canada and the United States. And he talked a lot about some of the strategies that he's put in place to create all of the commerce around Okanagan and Osoyoos. Anyway, it was a great, he was a great speaker. Also, a trade show, spent a couple hours on Friday night with the town, and then on Saturday at the energy hub. And I agree with what my colleagues have said. I think that was a fantastic idea, and I think it was very well received, and I think we did a really good job. Yeah, so congratulations. And this week I'm going to the Historical Village Committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Okay, so able to finally announce CAPE has a new executive director, Tracy Gardner, has accepted the position. Tracy spent the past 14 years as a general manager for Olds Regional Exhibition. She's been a member of the Ag Smart Industry Advisory Committee, the Olds College Ag Management Diploma Industry Advisory Committee, Oldton District Chamber of Commerce Board Member and Committee Lead, Olds College Global Agri-Foods Commons Strategic Committee, Calgary Stampede Centennial Celebrations Core Planning Committee, along with many, many other things that she has done. She has experience in government relations and is looking forward to this new challenge. And certainly the Board of CAPE is excited to have her join the organization on May 1st. Tracy will be attending the Economic Developers Association Conference in Kananaskis next week. And she also attended the Workshop Strategy Summit last week in Red Deer that Councillor Messaros was speaking of. So really pleased to have her. And just on a side note, her husband is actually Bowden CAO Rudy. So yeah, she's a very nice person. Looking forward to having her come and introduce you to her. Then on May 31st was Alberta Munis, of course, on the future of municipal government. And then discussion was kind of around regional collaboration, challenges and successes in growth management boards, ICFs, etc., and how important it is to work together to be successful, particularly in global investment attraction. And as former Mayor Don Iveson said, we need to be hunting as a pack. Always approach the subject with what is possible and advocate for all communities who are around the table. And as he said, the approach doesn't work if it only benefits a few. And then the Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus, which was half-day March 30th and 31st. We included various speakers, as Councillor Dunham said, Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP, Curtis Zablocki. He made it very clear that the RCMP does not want to exit contract policing, even though we hear something to that effect to the contrary. Our province, and even more importantly, the communities that they serve, we have control over policing priorities, and that the RCMP is flexible and adaptable and willing to work with what a community needs. So very strong speaker, and glad he was there. FCSS, I see Manager McKenzie in the gallery, so I think you'll enjoy some of these stats. You probably already know them, but the budget for FCSS, of course, is split 80-20 between the province and municipalities. A survey in 2021 indicates municipalities are now shouldering on average 32% of that cost as opposed to 20%. For every dollar that's invested in FCS, the return in CURE is between $7 and $12. So you can see what kind of value there is to investing in FCSS in our communities. In I don't know if this is 2021 or 2022, but there was 47,850 volunteers throughout Alberta. They invested 1.3 million volunteer hours, and the equivalent dollar amount to that is $20 million in volunteer hours throughout the year. So absolutely massive. And then just to keep the programs running as they currently are, funding should be $130 million. In their most recent budget, of course, $105 million was announced, and that $5 million increase was the first increase since 2015. And the funding formula for FCS hasn't changed since the 1990s. So a lot of work to be done, and thank you, Manager McKenzie, and your FCS staff here, all two of you, for doing everything that you do. Victim Services did a presentation, and still at least a year away from transitioning to the new regional governance model. That will be comprised of 4 regions in Alberta. I think that the thought process around this, that it will stabilize and improve programs throughout the province. I personally still have some questions around what the Victim Services Unit will be delivering to the community as far as criminal and non-criminal help, assisting families and things such as suicide, if that is still going to be part of their delivery. So some gray areas, but I know that we will continue to learn more as we move forward. I thoroughly enjoyed the media panel with All-Star Alberta pollster Janet Brown and Jason Markusoff from the CBC, Keith Shirine from the Edmonton Journal, and Byron Hackert from the Red Deer Advocate. I think Keith's comment around the decline in reporters in the Edmonton Journal from something like 35 to 40 a few years ago to now 5 or 6 currently is a huge challenge for them, and trying to cover all the things that are going on. And you know, we need to ensure that we have media because they hold all levels of government to account, especially in today's environment, and it's certainly a challenge for them with the constraints that they are saddled with. And then we also heard from the Premier and Opposition Leader Rachel Notley. Then Friday and Saturday I spent at the trade show and the Innisfil Energy Hub. I will also say huge kudos to the Chamber of Commerce for the planning and hosting of the show. And, you know, probably the first year without a full-time executive director to do that. So a lot of work was foisted on to the board members. So you did a great job. And again, Ken will be asking for a raise, but many thanks to Ken for the idea of the Innisfil Energy Hub, and all the organization went into that. And I know other colleagues at the office also helped you, but it was really wonderful, Ken, and we appreciate everything that you did to make this happen. Received very positive feedback from it, and many thanks to both staff and council that were at both on Friday and Saturday, and so giving of your time to help make it a success, and very positive feedbacks to the town, and so very pleased with the way everything went. So on that long note, we'll have a motion to go in camera, please.
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor?